Welcome to the Dribble Podcast, your weekly fix of all things Perth Wildcats and Aussie basketball, presented by PerthNow.
Hello and welcome to the Dribble Podcast, the place where crystal ball predictions come true. That's right, just like Ben Simmons' new three-point shooting percentage. When it comes to our forecast for the season, Greg and I are going at 100%. So if you want to hear this week's news before it happens, stick around. My name's Chris Robinson from the West and PerthNow, and joining me every week is the four-time NBL champ and charity dinner organiser extraordinaire, Mr. Greg Hire. How you doing, Greg?
Oh, I'm good. I mean, if we're talking about Ben Simmons' three-pointer, lucky enough we can talk about his shooting percentage for this season, but not for his career. So, I mean, before today, he was, 0 from 16, so good on him. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come, but... yeah, it's amazing that they literally celebrated a championship as he hit a corner three. But
yes.
I'm glad he at least shot one.
Yes, and as many people pointed out, it was against a team that's barely an NBA team right now in the New York Knicks, so we're not quite sure if it completely classifies as an NBA make. Mate, tell us off the top, the Stitch in Time Rise Up Gala dinner that you guys are into your fourth year now. How's the organising been for the week, and how are you feeling a couple of days out from the big event? Yeah,
I mean, it's always... I guess a mixture of nerves, emotions that you get, anxious, excited, an amazing amount of work gets put into it. Obviously, we've shifted venues to Crown, which just brings a level of expectation. Not saying there was a low expectation from previous years, but you just sort of get a bigger room, bigger dynamic and environment in doing so as well. It's in its fourth year, and so it's become a thing where I was just talking to Nathan Morris at the time, and just who's been, this is his fourth year, and he obviously has he actually shares a lot in terms of the planning and what he does, and it's sort of funny. We were just having a bit of a laugh that it becomes a point now where I obviously make contact with a lot of personalities, athletes, whatever it may be, icons, to get him involved, and now it's at that point where I get 6 to 8 emails from people saying, "Hey, can I be involved? Can I be a waiter?" And which is obviously a good problem to have. But it's been my wife would be very happy once this is done, because generally 2 weeks leading up to it, I'm not going to bed till 1 and then waking up at 5:30 to get my lift in and work out, and then go on to work. So it'll be a good night. And it's now at that point now where, just much like my career, I sort of, things that I can't control, I just sort of put to the side and just try and enjoy it and wait for the best. Yeah.
So for the people who don't know, your personal role on the night, do you jump into any of the weight sort of stuff? Have you sort of washed your hands of that a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember the very first year in which it was such an interesting dynamic. And I guess we go back to people that don't know, the dinner is the waiters are athletes or... we got Ernie Dingo, we've had Adam Gilchrist in the past, and then this year we've got Luke Shuey, we've had Nick Nganui, Damian Martin. So they're waiters on the night, and
Damo usually forgets like a portion of the meal that he's supposed to bring out, presumably.
Well, last year I think he forgot about the day. He literally called me up like the day before, and he's like, "Hey mate, I'm actually down south this week." I was like, "Thanks mate, really appreciate your support from my best mate." But so like in terms of, I remember the first year I was like, look, you're trying to do everything, and it's funny, like, I remember the very first year I was like, I'll do a couple of dishes, because I felt like, if you're asking all these people to come on board, and they actually do it, and they don't get paid, like it's out of goodwill. I mean, if you had to pay that amount of talent, like there's no way the night goes ahead.
And running at a loss for the night.
Exactly. So I was like, look, I don't want to just seem like, oh, hey guys, thanks for doing the job, and I'm just sitting there having a few wines. And so I remember like doing it and doing some stuff and holding a few plates, and I do the odd like when I can, but it got to the point where I remember they had to wait, and so I put like a hot dish on a tray of clean glasses, and like they had like a massive towel, or not towel, but something covering it, and this chef spat it. He like literally goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What?" And he's like, "That is literally the worst thing you could do." And I'm like, a hot plate on glasses? What are you talking about? And so then I was like, I'm out of the kitchen. And so I bet like now I will literally like try and I'll do the dessert, because generally at the end of the night as well, the waiters start ticking off and they start enjoying themselves.
Yeah,
and so I'll help out that
Okay.
last one. But the other part is too, mate, and this is, I guess, mental health, is like it connects with so many people on so many different levels. And once, from the start of, you obviously give an appreciation for the people that support you. And people have been to every single dinner, and then you start hearing stories. And as I open up and do that, throughout the night, people come across and they want to share their own story or their own journey. And you obviously give them the respect, and you want to hear that, and you want to be able to work with them in the future. And then at the end of the night, obviously after the speeches, you really have no time to be able to do all that sort of stuff, because you're, in a way, trying to engage people, and you want to connect with people. That's the beauty of the night. I've always said, and it's funny enough, and it can be, the financial gain of an event like this is obviously very important for the organisation, for us to be sustainable and to outlay programs, right? That's obviously the number one goal. But I really never put so much emphasis around it, because the message around mental health and the importance about it, you don't want to dilute that. It's not about, like, if for the sake of I annoy people to sell raffle tickets in order to make an extra $1,000 or $2,000 for the organisation, it's not worth it, where I could actually be annoying people about, checking in on a mate and actually taking care of your own well-being. And that's been the beauty of it. Like, once the dinner's done, like, and I don't even really look and go, oh, like, awesome, we made this money. It's like literally for 5 days, 5 months later, just getting inbox messages of someone connecting that came on the night, and that's powerful. And that's I guess when I created the event so many years ago, the sole focus was to try and bring more money in to the organisation, because we just didn't have any. And now, 4 years down the track, it's funny how the priority has sort of shifted, and it's more about actually making those relationships and connections to actually impact a life, change a life, or even save one.
Yeah, terrific. Well, I'm sure it'll be a fantastic night once again. Make sure you stay out of the kitchen. It sounds like you had Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen for that.
Tell me about it. I literally had to, the next year, as I was sat down at the committee, I said to the event, the person I was running it, I was like, hey, thank you for your support, and I'm not sure if they wanted to be over the top to fit the mold of being an angry chef, but we need to relax a little bit, because I don't want the waiters to feel like they're being disrespected and not appreciated. So let's
they are not professionals in this field.
Exactly right.
Well, let's get into the hoops, mate. As I mentioned off the top, crystal ball predictions 100% from last week, and that includes yours of Perth going 2-0, which was something I was sceptical about. I thought Adelaide might do them on Friday night, and for a long time it looked like it might happen. They kind of threatened the Sixers a few times, but every time Perth came up with the answer, and then they took care of business, obviously, against a weakened New Zealand at home on Sunday. One of the biggest positives for Perth was the spread of contributors they had across that weekend. So you think back to the Friday night, Nick Kay was probably player of the game. Damo answering the doubters from the previous week's podcast about how he might have just slipped a little bit with a massive last 3 or 4 minutes in Adelaide. Dario Hunt had a really good start to that game as well. And then you turn to Sunday, obviously Tariko White was injured, so Bryce Cotton stepped up, and then your mate Jesse Wagstaff had a really big cameo in the last quarter with White out as well. What does that sort of spread say about what you think Perth can do this season?
Well, and in a way it sounds like it's a boring cliche, but it's just those guys that get the job done. That's exactly what they did. And I think, you looked at it like Damo, and I remember it even... again, like, is he, I think he's getting monitored really well, and was he, is he looking as explosive as he does? No, he doesn't, but at the end of the day, like, that last little stretch and against Adelaide, like, comes up with a steal, like that pressure, like, after Adelaide sort of had a bit of a run, like, they hit a shot off that, momentum's going that way, and then it gets a huge rebound, the O-board. And then gets those looks, and that's... when you talk about the game and the outlook, like, it's forgotten about, right? Like, he has that game, but at the most critical part in the game, he stands up. And so, I thought he did, an amazing job. And then, obviously, against New Zealand, again, set the tone defensively. I thought he did really, really well. And I think, Nick's a really interesting one right now, because he's playing, like, he has these really big games, but then it's like I'm looking forward to seeing him in the second half. I think the World Cup campaign is just taxing. Like, and I think those
he's
double
had
headers,
a really big calendar year,
and
from starring in the NBL, going all the way through the grand final, going to New Zealand.
And there was
a great
he didn't lose
season
the
there.
game for 3 months. But and then going World Cup to that,
with the qualifiers and everything.
Yeah, and I think even
games.
that sense where I think if you had asked him, hey, do you reckon realistically you're going to make the World Cup? I don't think that was within his, obviously his belief, but I don't think he had those expectations.
We probably wouldn't have played in New Zealand if he had thought that, right? Yeah.
No doubt. He would have just, and so then goes that, and I think they've had a brutal road stretch too, and so he's just been, and the workhorse he is, it's not like and I know him, he doesn't have days off, so for me that's exciting to see, that the schedule easing off a little bit and he has a little bit of time to rejuvenate himself, because the losses that they've had is he hasn't had the best of games, and then it's, you look at him and you can see it's just he looks physically tired, exhausted, and that's unlike him, but so you got to look at that massive. I think the Tirico situation is something that we're obviously going to have to observe. For a moment there, getting in the car and on the way home from New Zealand and seeing that, I called Damo straight away the next day and was just is that all right? It just looked bad. And
he was
looked
on the bad, and then there was one really bad shot of him with the towel over his face. And for a guy who doesn't show much emotion, as we know, we sort of thought, holy moly, what's happened here?
For sure. And I think it's one of in the moment, I saw him go off and I thought it was just knees, banging each other. Yeah. And then it was until I saw his emotion on the bench. I was like, oh, that meant something more. What happened there and now. So, look, it's good. Obviously, he had some issues last year and all that sort of stuff. So, fingers crossed it's not a significant thing. But,
it sounds there was a really positive update on it a day or two ago, the bone bruising rather than the structural damage. I think Trevor Gleeson put him at a 50-50 shot this morning to go and take on
travel?
Cairns. I think they're travelling tomorrow. Oh, wait, did they travel today? No, they would have travelled today.
Well, hold on. They
play Saturday night.
Oh, so they'll leave tomorrow then.
Okay,
sweet. They'll train one more time.
Let's presume that they'll play it safe. It's one game for the weekend, not to take Cairns lightly, but Tirico's a gun. So let's presume that he sits out.
Yeah.
You know this team better than anyone. Who steps into that starting lineup?
Yeah, Clint would be the obvious choice. Okay. And then
you keep Jesse with that scoring punch off the bench.
It's so good to see him just going back to the guy he is. I think he had the most significant injury last year in terms of and this is going to sound funny, but the injury that he had sustained with his finger and the surgery that he had in the off-season to repair that, if you put that on another body part, it's the ACL. That's how significant the injury was for the finger. Okay. And so what's his best attribute is shooting, and so he actually had he had strapped up and all this sort of stuff, so it was an issue. And for a guy that is an absolute workhorse, and he still would, he had to have limits of hey, how much you can shoot, and so he couldn't go in every single day and get shots up like he generally does. And so for a guy that is acclimatized to doing that body of work, and if he starts missing a few shots, and when you start missing a few shots, you want to work out more, and that's not an option because of the injury he had. So it's not absolutely no surprise to see him doing what he does. And the thing I love about him is he's in a way it's so boring, but he's so smart. As soon as that Tom Vodanovich or whatever got on, Vodanovich gets on, I literally I was like, Jesse's just going to drive right by him here, because he was here's a rookie, a young guy that maybe doesn't really know the scout, and Jesse just knows the intricate, the little things of offenses, where I can get 2 points if I need be.
He's always had the crafty footwork down low as well.
Oh, mate, exactly. And his his prep to get a shot, and that's the thing he knows. When in the fourth quarter with Bryce is unselfish. He just gets himself loaded, and it was good. He hit those two, and then I thought, oh, here's a couple of chances, and he just kept shooting it. But it's good to see him. There was obviously a lot of question marks, and it always happens, and once they lose games. And it's funny, even I was thinking this on the way home, and obviously seeing Damos doing well, Jesse doing well, and older guys doing well across the league, like Brad Newley and all this sort of stuff. And we're so quick to talk about age as soon that regression. And then I look at across the league, and I'm like, Bogut, Brad Newley, Kevin, Kickett, David Anderson.
Even Gibbo's played some good ball.
Yeah, mate, exactly. Guys that, playing... we're so quick to bring in, even Gibbo. It's funny, I go... Do I look at... Adam Gibson and like Cole Adnam, and like who would I like want? I'd want Adam Gibson, like not just because like that, like just because of the structure he knows. I know he can hit a big shot and all this sort of stuff. But we're so like, okay, yeah, he's older. Like let's get him done. And it's funny. Like I look at it and go, like we're so quick. Like as soon as like we lose, like dismissive and go, oh age, they're done. Like basketball's a different sport than footy, where like your physicality sort of changes, and then you're like, okay, I can't play at the level that I'm going in. Like,
but also basketball, in footy you can't. It's not about carrying someone, but you can't give someone like a reduced role off the bench kind of thing. If you're in that 22, you need to be able to play. 80% of the game.
Run,
whereas in basketball, you can put a guy on your bench who might only play in spurts.
Yeah, it's a fine skill. Like the way David, like I loved it. Like Illawarra would have been against Cairns, I think. Like they just went. We know David Anderson is like a pure elite scorer, right? But we don't get much off him, and like and once third, fourth quarter he might struggle, but let's just go to him at every opportunity at the start if he's going and rolling, and he does like 10 points straight away, and it's good to sort of see that, and I guess those question marks sort of get eliminated from Wags' standpoint.
Talk to me about, and this was a sore point, the right expression? I'm not sure, but this sparked one of the classic Perth Adelaide all-in brawls when you jacked a three in the final seconds a few years ago and all hell broke loose. Playing for percentage.
Yes.
I want to talk about this and the team's kind of mindset. So percentage has become a thing. In the ladder, it used to be points differential between the two teams. Now it's just flat out for and against for teams that have similar records. I saw multiple times last round, including at the end of the Wildcats game against New Zealand, just dribbling it out for the last possession rather than trying to look to score. When you consider how tight the records can be at the end of the season, how tight the percentages can be, is this something that you guys take last season, for example, when you were playing? Is this something that gets talked about? Are you playing till the absolute last? Because I think you certainly have to explain the concept to the imports across the league, because you don't want to see being disrespected because there's a different culture in the NBA where you try and rub someone's nose in it. But is this something that gets talked about now that percentage is such a big thing? I'm really surprised that teams aren't going right to the end.
I was surprised that Bryce didn't shoot that last shot, and it was from the direction you would have seen. He turned to Trev, and Trev was like, nah, just go ahead. In the past, Trev's spoken about that, like in games, was like, if we're up 10-12, like go ahead, and he was like, that's fine, and he just said always just look over to get that, and then there's sometimes, like there's obviously what the relationship between the two teams are, like is there, if you're absolutely smashing them and you're just like, let's just lay into him sort of thing. Like there's some bad blood. Like, you're just going to do that. But, I definitely was surprised, like for sure. And it was only like 10 or 12, so it wasn't like, the game was done. But I was like, it's
not a rubbing your nose in it
that's
kind
the
of
thing.
Play,
and that's the thing, when you're up like 25-30, you just leave it because, one, like generally it's a development player and all that sort of stuff. So it's why I get nervous in those like 25-30, because you just don't know what like can be depicted. Like usually you draw up a play for a young guy, and so then like as a guy on another team, when like they're running a play for a development player getting his first look or getting a look, and so generally like it happened a few years ago, Lockie Cummings going at the end and scoring, and Teasy,
and then Brendan Teasy went through. Wasn't happy with it. So I always go. But it was definitely surprising. I'm not sure if anyone saw that Kentucky and that other guy. That clip was doing the rounds on Twitter where they're down like 60 or something. Dribbling the game out.
So amusing, because like from the angle I was like, fair enough, like warrant it. But then you got a tech, so then you actually like didn't help your team out. So like if you dunked it and just were like, I'm playing out, and just acted normal, I'd be like, I respect that. Like, you were playing out to the final whistle, but then you acted like an absolute bellend.
Yeah.
And so, like, it is interesting. And that's the thing, you look at it, right? Like, there's been a few times, and I remember Trev actually sitting down last year talking about percentages, because, like, the whole situation, and he was like, look, the rules have changed. Before, head-to-head, points and four. And I remember, like, Jacob Chance did the previous year's standings, and like redid it and was like based on percentages, and then was like, and I think there was a shift. I think maybe first, but then, and that was the year. I'm not sure if we lost or I don't know. No, we didn't go back to back last year, but there was a year and we switched, and yeah, we would have finished second, or we finished third, or we would have flipped over, and then I think fifth would have come into the finals.
Yeah,
like,
you're talking about small margins.
Yeah, and so then he was like, "That's the reason why we do it. It's not, trying to do that." So, yeah, it's always interesting.
Yeah. I just would have thought that, as I say, especially for the overseas guys who come in, each team sitting them down at the start of the season saying, "Hey, we're playing right until the end for this reason," and also, if we're getting done and other teams are playing till the end, it's not a disrespect thing. This is why they're doing it, so don't go and clock them. Yeah,
and you're seeing that as a rotation thing too. Like, you'll see, like, even Trev, and unfortunately it is like the case, because I remember, like, as a development player.
Yeah, I was going to say it's bad news for the defense.
Well, yeah, because I remember my very first year, like, that was the thing. All you were hoping for was a blowout.
Yeah,
and actually sometimes
get yourself 3 or 4 minutes
and blow, or win or loss. You just wanted to get on, and so like. Yeah, I remember, like, you know, my first year, like, New Zealand, like, we're up 40, and like, I got in with like 8 minutes left, and I was like, this is the best. Yeah. Like, you know, you're already in, and whereas like now, if you're up, like, why not, like, put it on them? And, you know, and sometimes the other teams are on a back-to-back double, like, they're on a double header, so they're already like, all right, we're done. You know, we've got to rest up guys because we were playing 2 days, so they take out your starters, and it's like free reign. It's like, well, we can actually really capitalise on this and turn a 20 into a 35-point game. And yeah, as you said, it could be a difference of 1 or 2 between playoff spots.
Absolutely. Did you score against New Zealand when you're up 40?
Yeah, of course.
Did you?
When you're a developer, you let it fly. But for my first season, I was 3 from 3 from the 3-point line, and so I think everyone thought, oh, this guy's that's all he does is shoot. And
answer me this. After that, did you hesitate a little bit? Because I feel like Ben Simmons might sit on one from one for a little while just to keep that 100%
I hesitated
going.
So much, and I was like, and I remembered, like, this is before, like the NBL website was... it wasn't good. It was like based on like IMG statistics. So I had like me on top of the percentage.
So it hadn't factored in the sort of minimum requirements.
So I was on top.
Excellent.
But I was a silhouette. The shadow. Didn't have no
silhouette.
photo.
That's the greatest 3-point shooter in NBL history. Never missed a 3.
And so it was like really good. And I remember thinking after my first season, like, I don't know if I send this out to potential European teams, they won't know what I look like, but at least I'll be sitting on top of the ladder. 3-point percentage.
That's great. Mate, I want to get into something we tried to do last week where we sort of ran out of time. Our tiers of NBL teams. So we've had a good sort of sample size of games now where most teams are sort of 10, 11 games into their season. As far as the different tiers go, who's sitting in that top bracket and then further down? Do you want to go with yours and then I'll give you my thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at this one here. I'm hoping this is... notes. These are my ones, right?
Yeah, your notes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's correct.
Like, are we going to double up? But yeah, no. Look, I think from a first tier, I think there's a separation. Sydney are definitely one. I just think, obviously, based on their record, find a way to get wins, just as quality teams do, which I've said online. And so I think, looking at what they're 9-1 right now, and still bringing in Kevin Lish, and I think they're looking really good, and even didn't have Didi Lazada at the start of the year for some games. So I think, that's like a little bit of a gap. And then you're looking at Melbourne and Perth. I just think, Melbourne obviously... I think Perth are obviously a little bit higher just because they're winning games. And I still, even Melbourne, like they're the 2 consistent teams, and so like Melbourne, like 5-game winning streak and all that sort of stuff. It helps that they're at home and playing Southeast Melbourne, so they really get double home games at the moment at the and all that sort of stuff. But I think that's there. And then you're looking at that tier 3, and I look at Southeast Melbourne and Brisbane, and then looking at maybe Adelaide. And why I say Adelaide, like I respect the heck out of Joey in the way he gets those guys to play. And it was like no surprise. If I was a betting man, I knew they were going to beat Southeast Melbourne. Yeah. Like I literally, I just knew. Like I was like They
were for those betting involved. They were paying about $3 to win that game as well.
And that's the thing. I think Southeast, you're starting to see that, right? Like even they started really hot, but then you're going to start. like people are going to start identifying players they're not used to, and rotations and philosophies and all that sort of stuff. And Adelaide, like obviously, they've got quality players like in terms of your studs. Like Jerome gets well, like in that system, he's a superstar. DJ just gets it done, And then when you which you have the capabilities of guys like Anthony Drimmick to step up, and
he had a great
Griffin
game
was
like
really good, like as well. And that's. Joey will get those guys like going, and so that's the thing. Like I think that win, like when I said that when we went 2-0, and I said that's going to determine where the Wildcats were at. That's a huge win. Like I think you can't just because of where they're sitting in the standings. I don't think you go, because to win in Adelaide and the way I reckon Adelaide storm home at all times. Like, and we've seen it prior. They might make a change, and who knows what's going on with Ramon Moore.
Watch that space.
Yeah. So I look at that, and I look. I think Brisbane will make a change. Ultimately, even I read Lemanis' thing. I just think that roster, and Patterson's a jet, but I just think like you're looking at that, they'll get it done.
Yep.
And then the last tier is, or tier 4 is Illawarra, New Zealand, and Cairns. And so they might get the odd win, and obviously there's a little bit of excitement around Illawarra, but up until only a couple of weeks ago, I thought they're an absolute like rabble. And irrespective of what Matt Walsh can say about New Zealand at the moment, it's dysfunctional. Even listen to interviews, and I respect that he goes out and being public. Any attention that's not needed still is dysfunctional for the group. You don't want to be going in, getting questions asked, don't want to be hearing all about that. You want to just be focusing on the game, and unfortunately that's not the case. We're talking more about what's happening off the court and roster changes than the performance of the club. And obviously when you've had sustained success for so long, for sure, you're always going to get that. But I think, right now you're just looking at it and you're just going like, wow, what's happened, And I think their rosters is like really weak, and we're going to talk about it later, I think, with the next stars. And I think that it's a very interesting topic of debate that I'm excited to talk about, actually, and I think it impacts New Zealand.
We'll jump back into the breakers in a sec. My tiers, I've got 5 as opposed to your 4, so I've gone a little bit more technical.
Good.
I've got Sydney with Melbourne on the top tier.
Okay.
So Melbourne rolling. Prather's only just come back.
Yep.
I think they've got another level to go to, kind of thing.
Is he staying the whole season?
Casey?
Yeah.
Is he not? Do you know something we don't know?
That's not my crystal ball. I just like the injuries is the concern for me. Like, I absolutely love the guy, so to see him, but then like the knee and the back now, like obviously that was just a back spasm, but he has one more injury. How patient can Melbourne be? Like, they're good enough to go there, but they know that they're either going to be playing, and we can all say it right now, you're either going to play Sydney or Perth in a grand final.
Or both in
that's what I'm saying. Correct,
series,
right? You're going to be playing those two teams.
Yep.
And you're playing Perth, who are a tried and tested like club, like in terms of, and they know playoffs is a completely separate game. Like it changes another level. And Sydney, just the way they are, they're playing, and new coaching staff and all that. So Melbourne can't go, like, these wins are fantastic, but it's a different game come finals. And if Casey isn't reliable, like if that happens, and then you go, I don't know. Every single time I'm like, I saw that game again, I was excited when he missed that first. He came back against Cairns, and then I thought, sweet, he comes back and he misses, and I just go, how long can they be patient? Like, Pledger's out, for now 6 to 8 weeks, and how long do they go? We need to have. Yeah, it's interesting.
That scares me, because you've got a really good record with when you say an import might be on the move.
It's getting close.
You've got a very good record with that. I've got Perth on the second tier, just behind those other two teams. I just don't know if they're quite at the level that they were at last year. Adelaide and Brisbane on the third tier. I've got the Phoenix. I had the Phoenix with New Zealand on the 4th. I think I'm bumping New Zealand down to the 5th now that they're a rabble. I just think the Phoenix, we sort of touched on it before, I think they're not quite going to hit a wall, but I think they're going to find things pretty tough when they hit the road. They've left Victoria once in their first, I think it's 9 or 10 games.
Yeah.
Obviously, new squad. You know what you're getting from Creek, but other than that, there's a little bit of inconsistency there.
And I'll say this in a polite way if I can. You're not winning a championship with Dane Pinot as your 5. I love the guy, mate. He has been unbelievable this season, and I really respect what he's done and just really grasp his opportunity with both hands. But you're not winning a championship with him, against, and that's admired. And that's the thing, they've got to, until they bring back Wesley,
Wesley's going to help a lot.
But, I had this. Is it Robertson or Robertson?
I think it's Robertson.
Because they were correcting people when they were saying it. And then I think that shooting guard spot, I don't think they're getting what they want. And me and Ben Madgen are college roommates, but I think. Yeah, that Ben and Kendall isn't that's not scaring people when you look at across and you go oh, well, you've got Bryce Cotton and Tariko White as your wing players. You're that's studs, and I think they just got a couple of, I think their depth's really good, but I think, that Dame Penn, and that's going to be interesting. Again, I'll put this, I don't think Benson's going to be hanging around. I think what helped him was 8 and 10.
He probably spared himself a reprieve with that game on Saturday, I think it was.
I hate talking about guys and jobs, but if that's what, they're bringing you in, unfortunately, that's the one spot, and that's what they're going to look to upgrade.
Yeah. I think they needed to be better than, I think they're 6-4 at the moment.
Yeah, I think with Brisbane, that's the thing. They've played 6 games on the road, I think. So I think they're, 4 and 5?
Yeah, I've still got them probably getting into 4th spot.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You take it and... Who said? I think even Joey. He said it in the press when they asked him where he's at, and he said, "Well, look, they said they're 50% on the road." And he said, when you look on the averages around the league, that's adequate, that's satisfactory, and I agree. Brisbane's schedule hasn't been kind.
Yeah. You have to take that into account.
It's going to be interesting to see.
And that's why Perth's so well placed at the moment as well. They've got those 4, I think they've got 4 road wins at the moment. Road wins worth their weight in gold. If you can grab 6 or 7 of those, you set yourself right up.
Well, they got that last stretch at home, 5 games.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes, the strength of schedule now being 9 teams. And, Wildcats, I think, only play Cairns 3 times.
Wildcats got double ups against, in terms of 4 rather than 3, against Sydney, Melbourne. I think it was either Brisbane or Adelaide.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
it would be Adelaide, I reckon, as well. Yeah, so not kind.
Yeah, no, we'll see if that rectifies itself next year.
Ironically, play South East 4 times.
Yeah, and they've played them 3 times already. Some teams they haven't played each other yet. Melbourne's played South East Melbourne 3 times. A quick one on the New Zealand mess. We sort of touched on it before. So Glenn Rice Jr. A sort of a bizarre story on Sunday. We got to the game earlier. It was my first game that I've covered or been down there for this season, and Rice was not in the shoot around, but he was still playing, but then he wasn't playing, and then he was on the bench asking for the Wi-Fi password, media Wi-Fi password, and eating chips.
Did he ask you?
He asked all of us, and Craig O'Donoghue gave it to him, which is very kind of him.
Oh, good on him.
So
football award winner?
Yes, that's right. Yes, the West Australians' finest.
Yeah, there you go.
So we don't really know what's going on there, and then we hear on the plane back that Tom Vodanovic has been drinking too much potentially, and has been pulled up. So that's all on top of the culture that Alex Pledger tweeted about earlier this week, saying it was a dynasty. And he's 100% right. It was.
Mate, good on him.
And so they were absolutely right there. And then you think about some of the guys that they've lost. So obviously, Lemanis, from a coaching staff point of view, Lemanis went, Vickerman went, Richard Clark, who was a GM, went, Henare's not there anymore, Braswell's been turfed out, and then from a playing point of view, Boucher as well, from a playing point of view, the number of ex-New Zealanders who are still in the league right now, so Vicona, Tarangi, Pledger, Illy, there's heaps more. I counted 7 the other day, and this is going to really annoy me that I've forgotten a couple of them now.
Wesley came back, but then
Wesley was there. Sean Long was there last year. They haven't been able to hold on to these guys, and all of a sudden, it's basically just from the old regime, Abercrombie and Webster, and a bit of Finn Delaney, who's been there for 3 or 4 years.
Webster was trying to leave.
He
was on the way out.
And so all of a sudden, you've got guys who are just flat out rookies, like RJ Hampton, who's a talent, but he's a rookie. Vodanovic. You bring in a shady background import like Rice. How does the culture change so quickly like that?
It's obviously the ownership group, right? And the Blackwells and Matt Walsh has said they're not, that they're different.
Is it disrespectful to the league to come in and think we can just completely change this thing up, do it our way, and sort of turf guys out think you're going to succeed?
For me, it's funny, right? And I look at it, and when you talk about being boring, I think what's been It's amazing when you look at, say, for example, 10 years now I've been playing, and you look at organisations that have been, like, it would be interesting to see, and someone that's got plenty of time on their hands, maybe Nick Tan could do this for me, but
Nick Tan would definitely do this.
Like,
whatever you're about to ask, Nick Tan will definitely do it. For the last 10 years, what's
been the cumulative record of all those teams, and then see what is the roster shift.
The stability factor.
Correct. How many what is the turnover? Like, of all that, I'd love to know transactions of players.
And including front office, coaching staff, so assistant coaches as well. That all factors in, right?
And to see all that and go... Yeah, because I would say, like in the Wildcats, like we would be the lowest, I think, player turnover. And then even seeing the years where you haven't done well is like, what was it? Like, okay, was it injuries for sure, but was there a significant amount of player turnover? Because I look at, like, when Melbourne won the championship, that was the thing. It was like they obviously recruited well, but they started going, we're just going to buy in, like, to the team that we had, you know, like... Well, I'm pretty sure the year before, like, they had Casper and they had Boone, you know, and they brought him back, you know, and there was that. It was the continuation of what they were building. And that's what New Zealand had. Like, when they had that, they changed it over. And don't get me wrong, they had some unbelievable players. Kirk Penny, Braswell in his prime, CJ, McKona. Like, you know, they had guys that play the role, and then Pledger and all these guys that were just, like beasts. But, the last 2 years, they've just completely... made that shift. But then even like transactions that, like, I just go like, weird. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like Deng, you know, like that they brought him, but hasn't played a game, like a minute, like not even stepped on the court. And I'm like, okay, so you do that, well then, like, just promote your development players then, you know, like what does that say to that player development pathway, you know, like, so look, it's, I think one, and it happens all the time, but I think there was disrespect, but I think an expectation that, like, it's a job easier than, you know, that what was expected, you know, and you know, from an ownership group, look, fantastic, they're getting attendance records and they did the RJ Hampton thing, but you're measured on success, and right now they're not successful, and it's weird, and even just I think that. You know, the way the whole Braswell situation plays out, like, just sack a guy, you know, like, if you sack the coach, like, don't reappoint a head of coaching or whatever. You can't even say he's the head coach. Like, that is so bizarre. Like, when they announce it, it's like head of, player.
Director of basketball
Mate,
strategy
we're not
or
dumb. So it's definitely, it's a shame. And especially because they won 4 championships. Like, you're right. They were a dynasty. They were an absolute powerhouse. You go train their facilities, and they live and breathe. At that time, I remember maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we went to Melbourne, and it would have maybe closer. Adam Ford to be able to help me out. And I remember we replicated what we wanted to replicate their training centre to exactly what we were, because we obviously had our ethos, our values, all that sort of stuff, but they had it just everywhere. Like, you'd go in this training centre and they would just have, you know, like their values, like, right there, and just hitting bang in your face. Like, you couldn't leave it. And it's the same. Like, we were like, we're a proud club. But, like, when we go up to the Perth Wildcat change rooms or the locker room upstairs, we want people to walk in there and go like, this is the Perth Wildcats. It's like when you go to college, the collegiate teams, it's like them, it's their branding. And so, like, and that's New Zealand. They've got the luxury of having their own facility like that. But it's a bit of a shame to see that. And, like, I knew, like, even I was like, before I got there, I was like, there's no chance, like, they're going to win. Like, even just going and seeing Glenn Rice like that. And, mate, I'm all about, the world I live in, I want to give people second chances. And I was hoping he would, but, like, how does that even happen? Like, you know, 2 days out, you're drinking, like, going out, that doesn't make sense. And even the Tom thing, like, hey, I'm all for, look, when I played, I had a red wine, like, at home, away from people. Why would you even put yourself, it's fine, you're a grown man, but why would you just lost, why would you want someone to play and thinking, you know, like, it's silliness. Yeah.
Well, one of those former breakers that we talked about, Andre Lemanis, been in the news the past 24 odd hours. Adrian Wojnarowski, who does not get stories wrong, breaking the story that Brett Brown will coach the Boomers at the Olympics next year. What was your take on this? And do you think Lemanis's legacy is different if one of those 2 tournaments, the 16 games or what happened a few months ago, if Australia picks up a medal there with a couple of different flips of the coin, does Lemanis' legacy change?
Yeah, I look at it. Everything is all worried about. Well, everyone just counts the World Cup and Olympic thing results. I think Commonwealth Games, no one really as much as good on those guys winning. Like from a public standpoint, that was an expectation you're going to win.
Yeah.
And from an Asia Cup, you know, if you didn't win, it'd be like, what's going on? So, yeah, look, I think for me, and I think what's been that sustained success, one, having that core group of guys of Paddy, Bogues, Baines, Joey,
it's the golden
Delhi,
generation.
Of just playing like that system that he had implemented and playing. They had just that relationship that was built. And I think Lemanis is, and unfortunately, there's those critics. He's not doing well at Brisbane and all that sort of stuff. But I look at it and now I'm like, I actually think he did a really bloody good job. They beat America for the first time ever, like in an exhibition match. Obviously not full strength, but still, like they got it done. Never done before, really, right? Or 56 games, and then like those medal, like you look at it and go, exactly, they don't get called that foul. They win a bronze, against Spain, and then
Mills hit the free throw,
and then you're looking at, and you wouldn't even question it. Now, do you look at it and go? Ben Simmons, then it wouldn't. That's it, right?
See, this is what I was going to ask you. How much of this, when you reach that kind of level, how much of the coaching role is man management and management of egos and making everyone blend rather than strictly X's and O's?
They played. I love the way they played. Just like they knew their roles. And this is going to be the interesting thing. The international game is so different to the NBA, right? Like, you look at it, Giannis is one of the most dominating players in the NBA, but at the World Cup was a nobody. Well, not nobody, but, wasn't...
Didn't quite do what we thought he'd do at the World Cup.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
And it's such a different game. And so, I look at it and go, okay... Ben Simmons comes into the fold, which he wasn't going to come in, I guess, with the Lemanis situation, and then
Jonah Bolden certainly wasn't coming in. Lemanis is still there.
And but this is the thing, that whole brotherhood and value system. There's an Australian player that years and years ago, I guess, disrespected the Australian culture or the value systems that they had implemented and has been on the exodus since and has not been into the fold, right? Who was a very talented player.
Still playing now?
Still playing now, okay? Not as good as he was before, but yeah. So, and that's because of disrespect for that, and that's what those players uphold. And that was player-driven, not letting, screw him, we don't need him. It's going to be interesting because obviously for medal chances, you want your best players playing. And so you're going to be going, yep, okay, let's bring in Jonah and he's quality, right? But yeah, I'm wondering, do they welcome him back and all that sort of stuff that's been built before, which I know Luke Longley's huge about, and all that sort of stuff. And then, the dynamic, are they going to be as successful as giving the ball to Ben Simmons and saying, hey, just get the job done, or run everything through Joe Ingles and Ben and Paddy Mills? Because we know Ben Simmons isn't shooting threes. Yeah. And that's been the weakness of the Australian lineup,
that's the
right?
extra dynamic, is that Simmons is such a unique player.
For sure. And you run him off pick and rolls and all that, but it's not like those pick and rolls you're hard showing, or you know what I mean? He's going to be good, but then I just look at it and go, there's guys around, in the game. I thought, as much as you can argue Lemanis' system and all that, I thought it was perfect for those players. Look how Baines has flourished, and he's now become. I think from the international game is translated into his son's sort of season where he's able to shoot threes and all that, because that's just where the season's gone. So, it's interesting. And look, from a selection standpoint, it didn't that roster, and you look at it and you change it again in the makeup. Yeah, in the end, Sobey didn't play and Glidden didn't play, but they wanted guys that were spots, specific roles. They brought in Glenn to be a shooter. Now we look at who else was available. If Ryan Broekhoff was available, Cam Glenn is not in the fold because Ryan Broekhoff is an elite shooter. Yep. We don't know what happened in the camp. Did Dengadell just crap down his leg. Like, did he just not perform? You know, we are not there, and just because they're in that space, like, they didn't have that all that time. Like, whoever performed, that's the beauty of a camp. We're throwing all these things at you, and you just need to play to the best of your ability in a short amount of time. That's what tournaments are. It's not a season. We know we don't need the best players, and at the end of the 28 regular season, it's a month. Like, it's more, you know. So. Yep. I had no disputes. Like, when those guys, like, I look and go, oh, like, who else? Yeah, like, was Mitch Creek? Yeah, but the role he played, like, yeah, he wasn't a shooter. Like, yeah, did he do well? Yeah, of course he did well. Like, good. Like, I'm glad he did that. But that's the old argument.
Role. It's not your best 12 players. It's the guys who each fit the role, the squad of 12 players. Yeah. You're not going to pick 12 shooting guards.
And the only team that's ever been able to do that is the NBA. Pardon me, and it's because they just they're freakily talented and athletic.
When you got someone like KD who can play all 5 positions,
exactly.
That's certainly helps. Yes. Fan question time. We'll get into a couple that we didn't have time for last week. So this one from Ernest Chua.
Yep.
Video replays are being used in other sports with varying degrees of acceptance/success, and he cited obviously DRS in cricket, VR in soccer, Hawkeye in tennis, including a challenge now in the NBA.
Yeah.
What's the mood and any push for more or less use in the NBL? I'll raise 2 points about this before I get to you, Greg. One, I like the use of replay in the NBL. I'd like them to keep it to 2 or 3 replays tops. If you can't tell if you need to change it after 2 or 3 replays, there's no point watching 4, 5, 6, 7.
I agree.
And the second thing is, for goodness sake, it's a very small thing, but please, rather than the refs run all the way around the back of the score bench, just get a monitor that can turn around.
Yes.
And if the ref's coming over and says, hey, I need to look at that, just turn it around so the ref can stay on the court rather than having to run all the way around the benches, all the way around back. It's a little thing, but gee, it bugs the hell out of me.
Oh, mate, I
and
agree.
if you do those 2 things, you reduce a replay time to maybe 25, 30 seconds as opposed to the 90 seconds that it takes at the moment.
Well, I know some of the NBL media listen to the show, so there's a piece of advice.
Let's make that happen, guys. Just one screen that can swivel, even if you just lift it up and turn it around. Exactly. Let's do that instead of having the run around.
Look, I think I like it. I mean, because it can be the difference of a game, you know. Look, if there's a replay and the game's out of question, like, you know, it's 15 points, and sometimes they go and it's like deflection. Like, really, just like it's got no outcome to the game. But I agree. I wouldn't mind the challenge. Like, I think it adds a different element. Would be different. And I think it would just be something that you can do at the end of, say, the last 2 minutes. Like, I don't think it's like the tennis where you get 3 challenges, and then Hawkeye and everyone's clapping, and then you get it and you get it back or you lose it.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it should just be like, bang, hey, you've got this 2 minutes. But it's interesting because I think even in the NBA now, I think you can dispute like foul calls and all that sort of stuff, right? Like,
there's a few things you can challenge.
Look, I think there's still a lot of, I think the level of standard of refereeing still has to like just get done. You don't want to, I think, limiting that, I'm all for it, but I wouldn't mind seeing a replay sort of thing being done. And even in a way to say it, like go, if it's a minute and a half, if they say, because someone could do a challenge and they go, okay, like I call a challenge and it's a timeout in essence because they have to do it. I'd say it's you charge a timeout if you're wrong, you know.
Yep.
And if you've got 2, or if you've got 1, then you lose it. Yeah. And that was your timeout, and then you don't get another chance. If you do it, you get the ball back, and that's it. Just because of that. And if you've got no timeouts, you get a technical foul. You know, if you're that adamant, like, does it? This sucks. But I think you want the game to speed up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the other potential thing I like about the challenge is, and we've seen this in some other sports in terms of over-appealing in cricket and stuff, I think you'd see coaches less working the refs and less complaining and stuff because it's like, well, if you're that passionate about it, challenge the call.
Correct.
You don't want to challenge the call? Well, you can't be too confident that was a horrible call then. Yeah. That's something I'd like to see.
Awesome.
Last question is from Faye about the Next Stars program. Do you think the Wildcats will ever make use of the program? How do you feel about the change to allow draft and stash NBA players like Didi Lazada at Sydney to be Next Stars? What are your thoughts on this, Gregor?
Yeah, I don't know, mate. Look, I think it wouldn't work at Wildcats. Like what you get in next stars.
So say James Wiseman is available for the Wildcats.
Yeah,
we've seen the update today is that he's going to be back in the NCAA. You don't think a next stars would ever, or you don't see that on the horizon at Perth?
I think.
Is that because there's a threat that they'd leave before the season's out?
Nah, not even that. I just think you look at teams' rosters, right? So like it's like the club has Tariko White, Bryce Cotton are our guys. Like they score a lot of points. The ball goes through their hands a lot. Nick Kay's your third guy, and then everyone else pops in, and if Dario can have a good game, so be it. You bring in the next guy's guy. This is the issue. I'll be hand in heart. I'm pleasantly surprised at the way Lamelo Ball is doing as well as he's doing. Because when I was away with Timmy Conrad when he signed at the World Cup, and I was like, geez, this is going to be a debacle. And I think obviously his dad's removed from the situation, so it makes it that much easier. But yeah, he's been an absolute gun. But yeah, he'll go top 3 just the way he's playing. But the way he plays as well, and they've got a couple of games, is he helping his team get wins or losses? Like, yeah, he's good. There's been some games I'm like, he didn't help him at all. That he was actually a detriment. Like he affected it, right? And that whole roster and all that sort of stuff. And so you go like, and they get to a certain point where even him, he's like, I'm not winning an NBL championship. I got to just continue getting better and doing all that sort of stuff. He's one case. Then I look at RJ Hampton and I look at it and go, he isn't good enough to be a starting point guard of an NBL team. Like, he isn't. And so they're giving him ridiculous amounts of responsibility. Obviously, getting back Scotty Hobson would be huge. But there is a team that's giving him, get us done, and poor results. And so you look at that, right? And so that's just 2. And so... but they're your they're top 5 picks initially at the start of the year, and I look at it and go, at a point, like if Scotty Hobson, RJ Hampton goes to Melbourne, Sydney, or Wildcats, they're not winning a championship. No way. Like if he's leading the charge, because when you're a Next Stars, there is obligations that you have to pay him a certain amount. So you have to pay him 25 minutes, as well as a salary. And all that sort of stuff. That's the procedure. And so that's the thing. Like when people put up their hand and say, I want to be involved, well, you have to give him, he'll either come off the bench or he starts and he has to have an influential role. It's not like, oh, hey, we can, like you'll have your moment. So like, that's my thing is like, if you got a guy like a club like the Sydney and those tiers, and you've got a guy that you're expected to perform, I just don't think it's a good... It doesn't work for the Wildcats. Now...
Because that hurts the other players. Potentially hurts the other players on the roster as well, right? If you see, hey, this guy stank it up last game and he's still getting 30 minutes tonight.
Yeah, exactly right.
Whereas my mate who's doing really well, or I'm shooting the heck out of the ball and I'm only getting half a look.
Well, you look at it, it's even funny enough, like you see it, but I've seen some games where they'll play and then like he'll just take... RJ out of the game in a way, because it's like, but like has he reached that? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sure it's not. He's ticked. Like, good, we can get him off. But I just think, you bring him in. The worst thing is like for them in the model, you're really like held ransom in a way, because if they don't play well, why would the next stars want to come to your program? Like you want to do it, and so like there's that double-edged sword. Like you want this, it's going to help out the product, but they need to flourish. Like they need to be good, and then their draft stock needs to improve, right? Like,
but it could help the team at the same time,
because he started at 18 and now he's top 3, top 5. But RJ's gone the other way, and so and that's why I don't think the Wildcats, because you get a caliber guy, you might get. So I haven't seen much of Terry Armstrong. He's gone to Southeast Melbourne.
Has he been on the floor?
He went on one, and he didn't look like he. Like I was he's not better than a development player and all that. And what are they spending on that resource wise? Is it helping out from a social media? Like no, not at the moment. Maybe got initial buzz, and so it's the quality of guy you got to get, and so that's the compromise. Now at the end of the day, and they can all say it. Next Stars works for Illawarra, like it'd work for Cairns and all that, because at the moment, I don't think they're championship contending teams as much as
so
they can
you
say.
might as well have a bit of publicity and a bit of hype
for sure.
and a bit of
and
eyeballs.
It works. And,
yeah.
and don't get me wrong, Lamelo has been like to me, like revelation in the way he is. Like he is in the last 2 games. Like that's the thing. Like they've given him the keys to the city and do that. And I was surprised, but on the other side, you look at it and go, yeah, but is that working out in New Zealand? I don't think so.
Yeah, very interesting situation to keep an eye on.
Talking about Didi Louzada, the loophole that Sydney exploited. If there's a loophole there, why would you not exploit it? And in saying that, like he's a quality guy. When I spoke to Adam Ford about it, because I was like, geez, you got a good one there. Yeah. He was like, he's basically James Ennis, in a way. He's a pretty bloody good player.
Who's not counting against your cap, and he's not an import.
That whole Next Stars thing, and who knows, it changes all that. But in saying that, it's not like what would have happened, and Sydney is smart, as they would have looked at the rule books and said, oh, there is a thing where you can be a drafted player. They would have agreed with Didi Louzada already. Like, he would have been agreed more than likely for an import spot. Like, they would have got him. And then they've gone through and looked at everything and said, oh, he's actually, like...
eligible to not be an import.
Yeah. Why not do it?
Yeah.
And it's not like someone signs up on a Google form and says, I want to be a Next Star. Bid on me. Like, no, like they...
Yeah, and that's my biggest contention. I hope other clubs have the chance to be able to. So more than likely,
obviously,
up.
the NBL, like that would have been the Didi Louzada situation. The other one, Lamelo and RJ, I'm sure, I don't know about news, but they would have said, guys, here's what they want. The NBL pays for them, and they said, here's what you want. You have to play in this amount of time.
Who wants him?
Who wants him? Put up your hand. It's a weird thing because I'm pretty sure it's a 2-year contract, and when they get drafted, they get bought out, and the NBL make money from it. That could be secret squirrel stuff, but I'm pretty sure it's an interesting thing because I've said that as well. It's like, why didn't at the time Luke Travers, who I think is an absolute gun of a player, and from my knowledge, Melbourne were recruiting him as well to bring him across, and I was like, why would he just not get him in Next Stars? Like pay him, like get the all that sort of stuff. And they're like, well, then they're no longer the Wildcats. They're not under them. They're actually under the NBL. So if they do it, and they have to negotiate a buyout, the club actually doesn't get anything. The league get a buyout too, and they end up being an ambassador as well for the league as they move on too. So going to
be very interesting to see how that all goes. Considering we're expecting more and more to come into the league
for sure
in years to come, mate. We've got to get you out of here. Yes. Crystal ball prediction, as I said, 2-0 last week. You took the Cats as 2-0, and I had Toriko in a double-digit first half against Adelaide. I think he had 12 in the first half, so that was nice. Predicted the hot start. I'm going to take Adelaide as road dogs again. Underdogs on the road. They're playing Brisbane. I think it's tomorrow night, the Friday night game.
Who? The Wildcats? Or?
No, Adelaide.
Oh, I was like, no, they're in Cairns.
No. Adelaide, a little bit up and about. Like to see Ramon Moore back potentially, but Taylor Braun's out for Brisbane. Lemanis has had, he's been suspended. That just came through before we came onto the pod. Altercation with someone from New Zealand, is that right? Who did they play last week?
Oh, it's an NBL suspension.
Yeah. He's had a 1-game ban. I think I read that right. It was literally just as I was walking in here. Lemanis has had a big week, so I'm taking the Sixers to get another upset road win. What do you got?
Oh,
Cats on the road? Do the Cats get it done without Toriko if Toriko doesn't play in Cairns? They've had some troubles with Cairns recently.
Yeah. I mean, like,
is that a coin flip game?
I just caught up with Matt Prittis yesterday, and he's like, and I was speaking about, when you get asked questions about your team and your teammates, and like, obviously I'm like, part of me thinks the Cats are going to lose, but they're my team, so but
why don't you predict that they're going to lose, and then you'd be happy either way? Yeah. You're going to do that kind of thing? Cairns have had their measure a couple of times.
I'm with you. And Cairns, they lost to Illawarra, right?
They did up there last Saturday night, I think. Yeah. Okay, so you're taking care. This is the most lost for words I've ever seen you on the podcast.
But then I know Jacob Chance listens to the show.
Does he?
So he's going to definitely give it to me.
Sorry, Chancey. Call it a reverse mock.
No, yeah, exactly.
Just go the reverse mock.
Yeah,
okay.
there you go.
We'll revisit it next week. And sorry, Jacob, if you're listening and if you've made it this far into a very long podcast. Okay, fair enough. Greg, get out of here. And best of luck with the dinner for Saturday night, mate. And to our listeners, stay tuned to the Western Perth Now. We'll chat to you next time.
The Dribble Podcast is brought to you by PerthNow, your home of sporting action from home and abroad.